I'd like to call the Iberia Parish Council meeting to order. The date is August 9th, 2017. The time is 6 o'clock. If we could stand for the prayer and pledge. Mr. Gosherson?
The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Mr. Pollard, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Tommy Pollard,
Here.
Michael Landry,
Here.
Tommy Landry,
Here.
Boyd Brown,
Here.
Warren Gossesing,
Here.
Natalie Broussard,
Here.
Paul Landry,
Here.
Ricky Gonsalas,
Here.
Joe Duca,
Here.
Eugene Olivier,
Here.
Brian Napier,
Here.
Burris Francis,
Here.
Marty Strahan,
Here.
Chad Montevan.
Here.
We have a quorum. Next, we'll move into public comments. I need a motion to go into public session. Moved by Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. Gonsalves. Roll call. Check your lights. One more. Messing up. Motion carries. Any comments from the general public on non-agenda items? I don't believe that we had any requests for non-agenda items. Comments from the general public on agenda items? Is there any member of the audience that wants to comment on anything that's on the agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion to close public session. Moved by Mr. Olivier, second by Mr. Gonsalves. Roll call. Tommy, you voted.
So rough with everything.
Mr. Landry's button's not working, so we'll just let the record reflect that he voted yes. Next, we'll move to, that motion carries. We'll move to reports from the Finance and Administrative Action. There's none. Reports on the building permits for the month of July 2017. That was in our packets. Public Works Department report for closed work orders dated July 17th through the 21st and the 24th through the 28th. Those were in our package as well. Special business, there's none. And council member announcements. Is there any council member announcements? Mr. Landry? Paul Landry?
Yeah, I attended the Airport Authority meeting yesterday, Tuesday, and everything seems to be going pretty good. Chairman Pat Norris got everything under control, and they're moving along, even though we don't have a director. But they did accept Mike Tarantino, and IDF is going to be the interim director for 60 to 90 days. So they want to take their time and go through all the applications that they have. So it looks good over there.
You're finished, Mr. Landry?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Napier?
Yes, I'd like to announce the passing of Mr. William Billy Patu, who was laid to rest today, who was a pioneer and leader in the sugar industry for a very long time, most of his life. And he was laid to rest today, and I'm going to actually put it on as a resolution of condolences to the family on our next meeting. So I just wanted to pass that on. And he actually also, if I'm not mistaken, sat on our levy board at one time. So, condolences go out to the family. Thank you.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes, I'd like to thank Warren Goshasan, his daughter, and family for having such good turnout for the St. Francis Diner lemonade sale last Saturday, and everybody that came and donated. Really good fundraiser.
I think you
And-
raised close to over $2,000. It was a great effort, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Goshasan, your precious little daughter.
And also, yesterday I was able to attend the Acadiana Flood Protection Coalition meeting. Really good meeting, had some good things, some good thoughts, and hopefully these people can do well with the looking for what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. Mr. Goshasan?
Madam Chair, I want to personally thank the members of Public Works who were in administration who were able to go and fix the potholes and the cave-ins on Lewis Street. However, the calls I did get, we were able to resolve those, but I also got calls today wanting to know if the parish installed speed bumps on Lewis Street in the curve. So that was just a temporary patch, I hope, and it has worked better than what it is. So I want to publicly thank them.
Mr. Gonsalves?
Yeah, just an update on Iberia Parish Medical Center's last board meeting. The hospital is experiencing continued growth on both campuses and solid economic indicators that are consistent with our projections. The current major improvements that we're experiencing is the OGBYN clinic will be, the new improvement to the OBGYN expansion will be up and running in September. We're also fixing to kick off an infusion wound care center, which is going to be an asset to the parish. And also we'll have the only significant accomplishments that we have is a hepatology processing unit, which is a liver, to analyze liver and treat livers. So those are some big things that come in the Iberia Parish Medical Center coming up. We also welcome a new doctor, Dr. Nick Sorrell, who is an ENT, and he will be opening practice here next week. And they also did receive the Best of the Tesh Hospital Award. So congratulations to the Iberia Parish Medical Center for a great job and moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Gonsalves. Mr. Michael Landry?
Yes, last Thursday I was fortunate enough to go to Governor's kickoff our Louisiana Resiliency Recovery. I, along with 3 members of our council, plus Larry, plus members of his staff was there. The governor gave the Acadiana area some high marks for working together as a region before this kickoff. And he has 4 regions he's working on. He's gonna use ours as really the test of the whole thing. I didn't stay for everything that night, but I stayed for 2 panel discussions. One was on the cost of a disaster, plus one was on the insurance and modifications we could do, and it was a very good conference, and I think we all got something out of it. And also, one other thing, I have some tickets to sell for the homeless shelter is having a big fundraiser. We raffling off 2 tickets to the LSU and Texas A&M game, plus hotel stay for that weekend. So anybody wants some, see me after the meeting.
And that's for the homeless shelter,
Shelter.
benefiting the homeless shelter.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Olivier?
Yes, I want to thank Ray Freeman for attending our town hall meeting on August the 3rd in Grand Mary. The Grand Mary Community Development Board sponsored this town hall meeting, and all the other parish officials that did attend the meeting. Ray gave a presentation about the levy. It was well received by the people that was there, and a lot of questions was asked, and I think it opened their mind to a better understanding what the levy is all about. Again, thanks to the administration for helping out, showing up for that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olivier. Mr. Dugas?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to give a little report on the Charter Ad Hoc Committee. We've been meeting every other week, and last week we met and discussed qualifications for the parish president and and the council members, and that's still an ongoing argument. We also talked about compensation packages for the parish president. Right now, the charter calls for an average of the sheriff, the clerk of court, and the assessor's office, and there's some question about where an average is the right way to compensate our parish president. So we're in discussions about maybe coming up with a firm dollar amount and with the perks that go with that. And so it's an ongoing discussion, and we're working on it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan. We'll now move on to parish president announcements. Mr. Richard?
Yes, I guess everyone know that Scott Saunier, father-in-law, passed away. In fact, he's been out for a couple of days, in and out for a couple of days. They had the services today. His father-in-law name is Ed Guidry, and I will also be doing a resolution giving condolences to the family. And to touch on what Mike Landry just said, at the Louisiana Resilient Recovery Kickoff, the governor talked about some $30 million that's going to be presented or given to this district. In that $30 million is a breakdown of $4.5 million for Gustav Ike monies, which Iberia Parish is receiving part of that. You might be aware of the properties that we going to be purchasing, houses that had repetitive flooding and things of that nature. So we're definitely getting our share of that. The $25 million is for the 2016 August flood. Those dollars, we haven't figured out yet how we're going to divide those dollars or what is going to be spent on. The governor have given the parish presidents in this particular region authority to figure out how we're going to spend those dollars. So as of now, we're looking at some of the coastal parishes such as St. Mary, Iberia, and Vermilion to do some serious work to try to be able to receive the water and get the water out when we get it. A little report on Public Works. We're doing some cleaning of culverts in District 10 and District 13. We did some inspections of the culverts in District 8. We're doing debris pickup, or we did debris pickup in District 1. We had some trees that was down due to weather in District 3. Took care of that. We had some field drainage work that we had to take care of in District 8 and 14. Drainage and roadside, we did that work in District 2, 11, 13, and 14. We did some grading in District 13 and 14, some patching, road patching in District 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, in the whole parish. We're doing some road repairs in District 8, 10, and 14. And of course, we're doing some side booming. Right now, the side boom work is being done in District 8. And we have some of course, you might be familiar with the project that we're doing right now in People's Coulee, where we have the slash buster out there getting that particular project ready to do some excavator work that's going to happen in a little bit. Also, we had some trees down, and we had to trim some trees in District 5 and District 10. So the Public Works Department is they doing what they normally do. They're staying very busy, and I think that's my report for now. Thank you.
Mr. Dugan?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one other thing I forgot. Not this Saturday, but next week, we're doing the Save the Lake cleanup campaign. The sheriff from St. Martin Parish will be participating, the sheriff from Iberia Parish. Public Works is going to help out. Mr. Napier is going to provide a jambalaya. Mr. Gosherson is providing hot dogs. I invite everybody to come out and give a hand, and if you can't, just come out and visit and eat some food. But it's going to be starting at 8 o'clock at the Morrisville Boat Landing. So everybody come out and have a good time.
What's the date again, Mr.
August 19th,
Dugan?
my birthday.
August 19th?
Mm-hmm. We're going to have a party over there.
That's why we picked that.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Thank you.
Mr. Gosherson?
Mr. Richard, I want to go back to maybe a statement that you made about the properties that repetitively flooded. You said that the state's kind of working those things out. What happens once those pieces of land are bought? Is it the parish's responsibility
sir.
to maintain them.
Forever.
If I remember clearly, there were some issues with the Attorney General on an opinion if we were gonna go that route. So has he all cleared that?
Everything is all clear.
So the one that I'm having the issue in Curtis subdivision,
That's all taken care of.
okay.
You're talking about, I don't want to mention his
Right.
name, but we took care of that one a couple of months ago.
So in the next, is there a time frame that we know that we'll start to see
I
some
don't
of
want
these
to get into
properties?
their personal case.
No,
but
not
they're- but-
just not in just in
Okay.
general of,
Yeah, some moving along a little bit quicker than others. You know, you have some things you have to do. You have to file your receipts and things. We
Okay.
have some things that we working right now, but it's moving along very
last
good.
question, do we have like set guidelines to who may qualify for that?
It's not our guidelines. They have to turn in a file application, and they have set guidelines. Yes, sir.
They are, okay, can I get those from maybe from the administration about how the state is working that so that we can?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
What
Thank
say,
you,
Marty?
Mr. Goshenson and Mr. Reshort. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda items for public hearing and adoption. Are there any items in the consent agenda section that any council member wants removed from the consent agenda? Mr. Goshenson?
Madam Chair, just for the TV, I'd like to take from the consent agenda summary item number 143.
All right, so summary number 143 will be removed from the consent agenda items. Any other items that anybody requests to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion to adopt the consent agenda items. I have a motion by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Paul Landry. Roll call. That motion carries with unanimously. Next, we'll move to summary number 143, introduced by Natalie Broussard, District 6, a resolution authorizing a cooperative endeavor agreement between Iberia Parish Government and Capital Area Finance Authority to allow CAFA to offer its homebuyer grant programs in Iberia Parish to qualified Iberia Parish constituents through program-approved lenders. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Goshenson, second by Mr. Trahan. Mr. Goshenson, you have the floor.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, if I may defer to the parish president so they can kind of explain a little bit to the people who may be watching at home that could qualify for this assistance.
Okay, well, this is actually something that was presented through an individual through Baton Rouge Parish, if I'm not mistaken. This is not something that the parish is recommending at all. This has nothing to do with Iberia Parish government. This is, as you heard last week when this particular organization came here, basically my understanding, and y'all can correct me because we was all at the same meeting, is that it goes through a particular bank. In this particular case is Iberia Bank, where they would actually have homeowners who could qualify to receive what sounds like grant monies that could be used to put like on a down payment or something like that, Warren.
Well-
But this has nothing to do with Iberia Parish
Okay, well,
government.
so I may be confused a little bit. I'm reading into the guidelines of cooperative endeavor agreement between Iberia Parish government and Capital Area Finance Authority.
Right, I think what have to happen there, if the council decide that they want to let this particular Capital Area Finance Authority do that particular type of work, then there's going to have to be a cooperative endeavorment agreement between us authorizing that resolution that you passed. I guess I'm correct in saying it like that.
If it was to pass, I just wanted to get the information out to
Yeah.
those who, it's an assistance to help with a
It
down
is an
payment.
assistance
Okay.
that would actually help homeowners. I don't think it's only first-time homeowners. I think it's
That's correct.
Anyone?
I think it's any homeowner that could apply as long as they gone through Iberia Bank, maybe,
Through the program.
through the program.
There may be other lenders.
There may be other lenders, but I know for sure it's Iberia Bank.
Okay, I just wanted to get that on the record for those who may be watching at home. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, and also closing costs.
That's right.
Yes.
And also, since we just all trying to recap that meeting, I think the parish would actually receive a little bit of funding from that as well. It's not, it don't sound like it's gonna be much, but on a closing, it may be a couple of $100 or something like that.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Goshison's goal was to make sure the public knows if this motion passes tonight, that that's a program that potential homeowners
Could use.
and make people aware of it.
Good.
No further discussion requests. We will call for a vote. Roll call. That motion carries unanimously. Moving on to ordinances introduced for public hearing and adoption, summary number 4842, introduced by the Zoning Commission, an ordinance approving a request for a special use conditional use permit to allow for a catering facility located at 4317 Faith Drive on the property of Ora Richardson, located in LaBelle Colleen Subdivision, District 11, all is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. I need a motion. Moved by, who moved it? Mr. Napier, second by Mr. Olivier. Yeah. We forgot to hit the buttons.
Make sure we didn't change in the midstream.
No. So, the motion was made by Brian Napier and seconded by Eugene Olivier. Any discussion? Roll call. Motion carries unanimously. Summary number 4843, introduced by Zoning Commission, an ordinance denying a request to approve a special use conditional use permit for the placement of a camper for temporary usage at 4817 Anchor Drive on the property of Lillian Burbett, District 10. All is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Olivier, second by Mr. Napier. Well, it was seconded by Mr. Napier.
Well, no,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, I did. Well,
Second by Mr. Napier.
I'm sorry, I took it back because I heard, I'm sorry.
Any discussion?
Sorry.
Hearing no discussion, roll call. We're going to get used to it. That motion carries unanimously. Resolutions introduced for public hearing and adoption. Summary number 145, introduced by Thomas J. Landry, District 3. A resolution of appreciation to Airport Director Jason DeValier for his years of service to Iberia Parish in said capacity. I have a motion by Mr. Napier and a second by Mr. Trahant.
Unanimous second.
I have a motion for a unanimous second. Any discussion? Mr. Napier, you want the floor?
Yes, I would just, again, as we all did at committee, wish Jason all the best. He did well, at least my time here. Jason was a very good director. We're gonna have a hard time filling his shoes, and I wish him well, and I thank him on behalf of the parish for his years of service and dedication to the airport. Thank you.
Mr. Traha?
Iterate what Brian's saying. Just give him a big thank you for what he done while he was here.
Roll call. That motion carries unanimously. And I know Mr. DeValier is not here, but if you see this, thank you, Mr. DeValier. Summary number 146, introduced by Paul Landry, District 7, a resolution directing that all necessary actions be taken to amend the boundaries of the Economic Development District Number 1 to include and/or remove additional properties as requested by the Iberia Parish Council. I have a motion by Mr. Landry. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Paul Landry, you have the floor.
I think we kind of went into it the other day. There's some property that's in the district that needs to be brought in, Highway 90 and 88. 3212 and Progress Point, I think Canal and Highway 90. So we'll get the people to start looking and recommend the different properties that need to be brought in. That'll be the process. First meeting in October. Is that enough time? And we'll shoot for the first Wednesday in October.
All right, before we take that motion, let me finish the discussion. Mr. Trahan, you have the floor.
No, you answered my question.
All right. I understand we're waiting for legal to get that information for us to finalize it. Mr. Dugas?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point that Paul didn't make. When the TIF districts were originally designed, they could not include a resident. Over the years, these people have moved out and businesses have come in, so those lines have to be redrawn to incorporate those businesses. So that's all that's going on right now, adjusting the lines to get all the businesses in. Thank you.
I would, this is a process that is a little complicated. I'm not sure what you want by the October, but we're going to have to, I think, include Mr. Jason Akins. There are a lot of ramifications to how you do this, and of course, there has to be some publications involved. But I guess I'm assuming that we're just trying to get things in line with that date.
Yes.
There's a lot of complicated issues that are involved with this. I see one of the, and I don't know, are y'all still talking about this Lewis Street area?
Yeah, we also said Lewis Street to Amador.
Well, you can't go all the way to Armaldoyle because the city limits are there. Although, and your TIF district does go down the road to the city limits. Doesn't necessarily go on all sides.
Right, that's fine.
Mr. Gosselin?
Yeah, I think that was my question. I thought October 1st might be a stringent deadline because I think what you want to do is you want to vote October 1st, you just want preliminary guidelines.
Guidelines bringing it to us just to get it started.
Okay, all right, that's kind of short term for what we're asking. So I would rather be a lot thorough and get informed before we make a vote October the 1st on the lines drawn.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, and also, we probably gonna have to bring the registered voters in too.
Well, it depends on whether any registered voters are going to be in the additions. If there are no registered voters that own property in the areas that you intend to add, then an election is not necessary. But if there are any registered voters in those areas, then you would need an election. You need an election for the boundary, you need an election for the tax.
Exactly. All right.
Mr. Gosselin?
Mr. Watney, I have a question for you. We can't go in and impose the tax in the city, but we can dump our money in EDD district, like for Lewis Street widening program, correct?
Well, here's the way it works. Since we had the lawsuit, which I was involved with, between the city and the parish over the TIF districts, there has been some legislation that has been passed. And we cannot put a taxing district into the city limits or any municipality limits, New Iberia, Generette, wherever, without their permission. Likewise, they can't put a taxing district in the parish without our permission. However, there is the provision that we can enter into cooperative endeavor agreements where we can spend money in or around our TIF, which is what we did with the Lewis Street widening area, because there's a good portion of that is in the city limits, but it affects our infrastructure in the parish. So we have an Attorney General's opinion that allowed us to do that. So you can enter into these agreements as long as there's a benefit to both parties, even though you don't spend it necessarily. So we can spend it in the city as long as there's a benefit to the parish and as long as there's an intergovernmental agreement. But we can't put our district into the city, although we can spend money near the end of our district.
Right. I want to just say for the record, and Mr. Richard, I know you're working on Lewis Street widening program. I would just say it probably would be a very beneficial thing for the city to join forces with Mr. Landry's legislation, because we're going in to their territory to drop, which I shouldn't call it territory, but we're working together to enhance issues that they're having in the city with parish tax dollars, which are paid by city and parish people. So please encourage them to join on board with us, because this could be a very, very beneficial for long-term effect in that area.
Mr. Geisler, when this lawsuit was settled with the city, there's an agreement in the settlement of the lawsuit between the city and the parish that if a TIF district is established in the city limits, that we will jointly use money for projects in both. So the city has not as of yet funded their district, but if they ever do, then there will be additional mechanisms to work out those kind of projects.
It very much is encouraging to hear that both officials from the parish and the city are working together on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Landry?
With all this going on, what I'd like to do is go ahead and table it till the first meeting in October back to committee, to give Dean and everybody a chance to start working on it.
All right, I have a motion to table to October 11th committee meeting. That's a second, Mr. Olivier. I have a motion by Mr. Paul Landry, a second by Mr. Eugene Olivier. Any discussion on the motion to table? Roll call. Motion carries unanimously. Summary number 147, introduced by Michael Landry, District 2, a resolution amending the 2017 general fund budget in the amount of $8,000 to provide funding for digital conversion of the equipment in the council chambers, all to be funded from the group insurance line item. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Mr. Trahan. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Paul Landry. Any discussion, Mr. Trahan?
I'd like to go ahead with this, but I would like to see what it would cost to put one of these to where they could request to speak the lawyer and the parish president. I don't know, it's just an idea. Not with this, but maybe entertain that later, to where they ain't gotta look at us or.
I don't see any problem with that. I mean, we can definitely get a price for that. Any other discussion? Roll call. That motion carries unanimously. And just for the public, once we get that done, I won't have to keep calling out the vote. The vote will be able to be displayed at that point. Summary number 148, introduced by Planning Commission, a resolution granting preliminary approval to the development of Kane Brock Apartments located on Nico Town Road, District 10, contingent upon the receipt of a drainage impact study being approved by the Public Works Department, all as recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier. Second by Mr. Landry, Paul Landry. Discussion, Mr. Olivier?
I'm not sure with this drainage study. John, can you explain the drainage study part of it to us?
The drainage impact study is a requirement for any type of commercial development. And when you have a large-scale development like the apartment complex, Public Works has to review and approve it. And we have received confirmation from Herman that he has reviewed it and it is in compliance with drainage standards, and it is recommended to proceed. It was just a loose item that was hanging, but that has been reviewed and approved, and we are looking at the possibility of still requiring the drainage impact study but instead of requiring a massive set of plans and documents, come down to a condensed version which just comes or provides the recap that post-construction runoff and drainage patterns do not exceed or excel pre-construction runoff patterns, etc. In other words, when you're finished, you're better off than you were before you started.
Right, okay, all right, good. And I encourage my fellow council members to support this resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Paul Landry?
Oh, I'm fine.
That was just your second. Mr. Dugas?
Mr. Rain, who did you say would do the impact study? Did you say Herman would do that?
No, it is a requirement of the developer or the applicant himself to provide it. It's usually provided by an engineer.
Okay, I just.
But it is not the requirement of my office nor Herman's. It is the responsibility of the applicant.
I got you. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Mr. Trahan?
Yes, a question to Public Works. Is our laterals in Maine be able to handle this construction?
I think Herman looked at it and approved it.
Okay,
It was just a runoff from like the retention ponds and the parking lots and stuff.
yeah, okay, good.
Mr. Richard?
John, we've been talking about drainage impact studies being approved by Herman. You have a professional engineer that did this study, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's good enough.
And if I might
Go ahead.
add to that, one of the requirements is is that the professional engineer would provide to Mr. Broussard and myself his statement of validity that I, as the professional engineer, am stamping
That's
this
good enough.
and indicating that I take full responsibility.
Well, that's the point I was trying to make, because I want to be certain that Herman, which we have a very good public works director, but he can't stamp something that an engineer has done. So as long as we have these professional engineers stamping their work, I'm okay with that.
All right. Mr. Gonsalves?
Yeah, Larry, I think what the question you need to address is that it's stamped by engineer, but I think it's up to Herman to make sure that our infrastructure
Oh, we
in
got
the
that.
area of the area is gonna sustain what they building. I think that's the only position Herman has to take.
That's fine.
Yeah.
He got that part.
Having no further requests for discussion, roll call. Motion carries unanimously. I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Goshenson, a second by Mr. Gonsalves, and
10-minute break.
do we need a break, or y'all ready to go straight into committee?